Yo, what's good, my G?
Yo, what's popping?
We good, man. Back. I think, what is this, like 4 weeks in a row?
Man, I lost count. I think we're probably at 5, maybe 4 or 5.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Time flies, man. Time
Yeah,
flies. But man, I'm super lit, super excited about everything that's been happening. We've been getting great reviews. Last week's show was a hit.
yeah.
It changed my perspective and my thinking about homeschool and really, pushing towards actually doing it.
Yeah. So I actually, I can officially say that we're not homeschooling right now. This is just distance learning. so
Right.
so our guest Talitha, first of all, thank you to Talitha and the Rise organization for coming on. And also thanks to our wives for joining the show as well. Let me make sure that I get that so I don't get in trouble when I get off this, right?
Oh yeah.
So got some good information about that. So pretty excited about that and got a lot of feedback after that too. And a lot of folks reached out to connect with Talitha about questions that they may have, or even looking into potentially starting their own homeschool. So that was pretty dope.
Yeah. People hit me up the next day and they would just like, it was people who didn't even have children. That were hitting me up, that were like having conversations about when they do have children and doing the homeschooling, because you already know what the public school education is going to do to our black and brown, black boys and girls.
Right.
So that was dope. Shout out to Talitha. Shout out to her husband as well, who joined us.
Javante. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, man, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is I was actually going to transition into what today's show is. So if you had something to say.
No, we're good. Let's move on with that.
All right, man. So, as we always keep it pretty dope. And actually, we're going to be talking about, no pun intended, but, today we're going to be talking about marijuana, CBD industry, and even the criminalization that comes with, marijuana. And, we got an expert that's going to be with us. And so, man, I appreciate it if you introduce her.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm excited again because, anything that's tied to my alma mater, I'm always excited about. And we have yet another alumni, pretty successful alumni, that has been working in this industry for quite some time now. So she is the co-founder of Dope CFO. It's a nationally recognized cannabis accounting firm that does bookkeeping and training programs. So far, they've helped about 500 accounting professionals in all 50 states to build, thriving cannabis accounting firms. And it's just a pretty unique space that I didn't even know existed, because when you think of, the cannabis industry, you just think about the sale of it, right? Or the use of it, but you don't think about the auxiliary, organizations that help support that, right? And so I think unless you want to go to jail, you might want to have some proper accounting in place. So Naomi Granger is our guest, and she's a pretty dynamic person. I've known her for quite some time, and she's, as I stated before, she's an alumni of the illustrious Florida A&M University. Go Rattlers! So without further ado, man, let's bring her out.
Bring her out. What's up, Naomi?
Hey. So Naomi, first of all, thanks for joining us. Two really dope dudes. I'm pretty excited about this conversation because leading up to this, I've been getting quite a bit of feedback and even some questions like, you guys sure y'all want to talk about that? But nothing's off limit on this show. So first of all, thank you for coming on. And why don't you tell the people a little bit more about you, yourself, your background, and what even qualifies you to talk about this topic?
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And so I started in accounting. I'm a CPA. And I worked at Big Four accounting firms. I worked in corporate, and I did that for over 12 years. And then I got to the point where I no longer wanted to go into an office or a cubicle. I did not want to work for anybody. I felt like I was going to prison from 9 to 5. Like I was in a windowless cube for all those hours, 9 until they let me leave that day. And I just wanted something different. So while I was still working, I started doing research on how do I build an online business? I really wanted a remote business, something that I could do from my computer from anywhere in the world. I could, be anywhere on a vacation and still make money. So 4 years ago, I already had the idea of what we're going through right now. Like, I wanted to work from my computer and I wanted to design my life around that. And so I started studying online businesses. I started studying other industries. I thought maybe I couldn't do accounting anymore because I didn't know how to do accounting remotely. And then 2 years, I ended up getting fired because there was no way that I was going to, I wanted this lifestyle. However, I was making 6 figures and there was no way I was just going to quit. But I feel like I kind of willed it all into myself because every day I went to work, I was saying, I hate it here. I'm miserable. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And then ultimately I ended up getting fired. And so I had saved up for that day because I had already planned way before I got fired that this was my last corporate job. I'm going to figure this out. So I started already investing in online education. I put money to the side. I, got rid of all my debt and I made myself so that this could happen for me. So I was actually unemployed for 2 years before I actually found something that actually worked for me. And I knew that it was going to take some time. I had to relearn how to work because I'm used to being an employee. So I had to learn how to be an entrepreneur. I had to learn a new skill set. I had to learn all these different things. It did get hard towards the end of that 2 years. I was thinking about going and just getting another job. So I was still a CPA. I could still get a job anywhere, but I actually went to a job interview and then they offered me $50K, which was what I was making when I graduated college. And I was like, did you guys see that I had 12 years of experience on my resume? And so prior to me going to that job interview, I had invested in a training program to teach me how to do a remote accounting practice. And so I went to that job interview and I was like, you know what, let me just work this program that I've already invested. I invested $6,000 in. Let me work this program, see if I could land clients. And 2 weeks after I got that offer, I landed my first client that was paying me $1,500 a month for doing monthly bank reconciliations, credit card reconciliations, PayPal, Amazon, just reconciliations. And took me about 20 hours a month. And I was like, dude, all I need is like 5 or 6 of these. And that's more than that $50K that person offered me. And so then another lesson that I learned in the training program is you need to pick one niche and become an expert in that one niche in order to really scale your business. And so I started playing around. Like the first client was just, anybody who needs an accountant, I'm ready because I need to get some income. But then I started playing around and trying to figure out what is that one niche for me. And a lot of the niches that I tried to explore, I didn't enjoy them. I wasn't passionate about them. I didn't really care if their stuff balanced, and they didn't really have a need for me. But then I learned about the legal cannabis industry. And that's when I started to get really passionate, something that I could sink my teeth into. And it's just taken off from there. So it's been over 2.5 years that I have been doing accounting in the cannabis, specifically in the cannabis industry. And it's just, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing ride. And I really enjoy what I'm doing now.
So I can tell that you're super passionate about what you do, right? So we all want to find something that we're passionate about in life. But it was also risky, right? Because this is still an industry that's still in its infancy, still developing, still gaining traction. And there are still a lot of opposition to it, right? Coupled on top of that, just the aesthetics, right? Just the perception of the industry itself. Talk to us about, one, why take a risk of going into a space that's already volatile, not really sure how it's going to shake out because there are a lot of rules and regulations that are still shaping around that. How were you able to even maneuver that?
Yeah, great question. So it's a little bit easier when you go into it as an ancillary business. And we can talk more about the different types and needs for ancillary businesses a little bit later. So going in as an ancillary business, we like to use the saying, during the gold rush, not everybody struck gold, but everybody needed a shovel. And so the person who was selling the shovels was making all the money, and that gold miner may or may not have made money. And it's the same thing in this industry. We have these cannabis businesses. It's a lot riskier to go in and actually get a license, try to start a business, open a dispensary, open a farm. It's very capital intensive. And a lot of these businesses are barely breaking even right now, only because they're heavily taxed. And we'll get into that. You know, they pay more for all of their expenses. There's just so much regulation, so much overhead. So a lot of them are just barely breaking even right now. But as an ancillary business, it was easier to take that risk. Once the only possible risk to me would have been the risk of losing my CPA license.
Right.
And so I ended up finding a mentor and working with somebody closely, and he's now my business partner. And he kind of, you know, helped me understand, you know, there's really no risk as an accountant to lose your CPA license. You've got to check the state statutes, and each state has issued an opinion on if you're allowed to work with them or not. But as long as you're not signing an opinion or doing review work where you're signing on the dotted line saying, based on my professional opinion, these books are materially accurate. As a bookkeeper, you're not doing that. And so ultimately, even if you prepare their taxes, ultimately the risk lies on the business owner. And that's another thing I try to educate business owners, that they can't just bury their head in the sand and say, oh, I've got an accountant, I don't even want to think about it. Because if that accountant's not doing it right, they're the ones that are going to be in court, and they're the ones that are going to have to foot the legal bill, and they're the ones that could possibly get some jail time. So it's very low risk as the ancillary business.
Yeah. Wow. So Naomi, I want to, you brought up something in your comments about capital and about getting into the business and the industry. I want to know if you could talk a little bit about demographics, right? And the reason why I'm raising this question is because in America, we know that African Americans, it's interesting, the dynamic, right? African Americans have been arrested for weed possession and distribution of weed. But here we now see a business that is very lucrative for the very same things that African Americans are in prison for right now. And it's still being distributed and being sold, but in a different way. What are the demographics like? What are they like in this field that you're in right now?
Yeah, the irony. So they took them off the street corners, put them in jail, and then they made them legal. And then they made it an essential business during a pandemic. And now you can only buy it on the street corner, curbside.
Right.
What is happening in this country? Who's in charge? But yeah, so African Americans as well as women are underrepresented in this industry. When it went legal, is predominantly white male, white female as well, that are able to get these licenses. The licenses were not equitably distributed in each of the states, as well as the licenses. They have all these barriers. You can't have a criminal background.
Right.
You had to have millions of dollars of capital to even get in. So there's just all these barriers for the African Americans to even get into this industry. So what's happened is a lot of these states, they issued licenses, and then they opened it up, they made it legal, and then you look up and all the licenses are gone. And so a lot of these states and a lot of the people protested, and they had them open it back up, but make it more equitable. There are these social equity programs that some states have issued, and the social equity programs are made in order to provide funds to underrepresented people who were negatively impacted by the war on drugs, to help them get the funds and be able to get the licensing. And a lot of times what I was seeing is that a lot of the white male dominated businesses would find an African American partner in order to qualify for the social equity program.
That was the loophole.
There we go.
Yeah. So, but there's a bunch of movements out there. I do know a lot of African American dispensary owners and license holders and things, and I'm proud to know them. But we still have a long way to go.
Let's transition a little bit, right? And I want to put things into perspective, and let's talk about the economics around this, right? So this is kind of like the modern day gold rush. Let's quantify it, right? So last year, I think the stats were $12.2 billion with a B, not an M, $billion made in that industry. This year, from what we understand, is that it's projected to be more than $25 billion as far as revenue that will come from this industry, right? Mm-hmm. You talked earlier about, the ability to get licensing and the whole criminality. And if you have a background, you can't really get the licensing and so forth. I guess you also spoke about the ancillary businesses around it. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because if I'm locked out from the industry because I have a criminal background, how do I get in another way? What are some of the different auxiliary things that we could be doing to potentially get into this industry to support it?
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So this is actually one of the biggest industries in the country. It's almost like opening up an entire new economy. So
Wow.
if you were to think back to like when the car was first created, now you need roads, now you need gas stations, now you need motels on the side of the road for people to stay at on a road trip. You need tires, you need oil. There was so much mechanics, there's so much opened up just from the creation of the car. I look at cannabis the same way. So you have this huge multi-billion-dollar industry that needs accountants, they need marketers, they need special packaging for those edibles so that your kids don't get to them. They need, they need signs, there's so much that these businesses need in order to operate. They need attorneys, they even need electricians and plumbers and real estate agents and things to get them their locations. Right. And so if there's something that you're very passionate about, there is a way that you can possibly shift your current skill sets into the cannabis industry, because just about everything that you can think about a business needing, that you can probably offer that to them.
I got a question. Do they need pastors? Because
you got to get creative with that one.
They need a few preachers. I'll see if we can get in there. No, I'm just playing. But
so I want to read something to you, and I want you to give me your opinion on this. Right. So we still know that the legalization or states opening up and allowing the sale of marijuana as a legal product in that state, it's kind of like a slow crawl. And I know that it's probably being expedited because of COVID. But just like the prohibition on alcohol, I'm curious to hear your opinion around this. So I found some stats, and it said approximately 88,000 people, men and women, die from alcohol-related deaths annually, right? And it said around 50,000 people die each year from alcohol poisoning, and similarly 400,000 deaths attributed to tobacco smoking. Now, I stopped there as far as stats are concerned, and I didn't really dig any deeper to find out what the overdose rate was for marijuana, because I can probably say it's negligible. Why do you think that there's such a resistance for this industry?
Yeah, now I don't even know if you can overdose on marijuana.
Right. That was being sarcastic.
But it's all about money. And we're able, hopefully this COVID thing is a wake-up call, because once profits are removed, then humanity comes forward. Like all this stuff that's happening, people, relaxing, rents, giving stimulus plans, letting you cancel your flights, like all this stuff that they could have been doing. Right. All of a sudden, now this is okay to do because they're not making any money anyway. So profits have been removed and humanity has come, and everybody is in this together and they're helping people out. And not only did, all that went away. So now marijuana became essential. It became an essential business during a time of a crisis, because they do know that this is medicine. The US government has had a patent on the medical use of cannabis since 2003. But we've been in this war on drugs for decades. Right. And so they know that this is medicine. However, there's profits that are tied to it. Like if you can grow your medicine in your backyard and get rid of PTSD, get rid of depression, fix your whatever menstrual cramps or things you have going on, and you don't have to go to the pharmacy and get something that's made from, a medicine that has chemicals wrapped around it that only that pharmaceutical company can make, produce, and sell to you, then those pharmaceutical companies are going to start losing a lot of money. And so they are trying to release, like, CBD became federally legal. And I do know that there is one pharmaceutical company that is working to make a CBD medicine. But first of all, they've got to make it so that you can't just grow it yourself.
Right.
You can't just use it yourself, because right now a lot of people are figuring out how to make their own CBD oil to cure their epilepsy for their children, and those types of things. So I think it's all about, it boils down to money. There's so much money in the war on drugs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you just said that. Sorry, Jamie, just real quick. So there's another stat that I found. So the US spends $10 billion annually, right, of taxpayer dollars on arrests for marijuana. So there's on an annual basis 600,000 arrests made for marijuana related crime. But yet simultaneously, you just said something, you kind of grazed over it a little bit. The US Health Department holds the patent for marijuana, which is weird to me. You're spending all this money on the criminal aspect of it, filling up jails, which is another industry we can get into a little bit later. But yet, you hold a patent to it. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I can't answer that question. You'll have to talk to a bunch of politicians.
Oh my God.
Well, it kind of goes back to a broader picture in the health care industry in America, that America cares more about prescription than prevention. Right. So if marijuana is going to heal you, the pharmaceutical companies don't want that.
There's no incentive.
And the other thing too is you probably need to, and this will probably take a lot of research, is I'm pretty sure that a lot of pharmaceutical companies or business owners probably got stocks in privatized prisons. So, it keeps the money circling, the money growing, because I'm sure the CBD lobbyists don't have as much power as these pharmaceutical companies, that they can buy politicians and make sure that this thing stays to the side, because we don't want people getting healed. It's kind of like, Raid, roach spray. Like, why would Raid make a spray that kills all roaches? They'll put themselves out of business. So, you make a spray that kills a few roaches, but coming back for more. So, but it's the thing. America just loves it when people are sick. They love people being sick and not being healed, because that continues to keep the beds filled in hospitals and the beds filled in the prisons, keep locking up Black people for, I think in Dallas, they were locking up people for just having not even I think 4 ounces of weed or an ounce of weed. And you know how small that is, how light that is. You are already getting thrown into
that doesn't make you a kingpin.
Yeah. And they're trying to get these people out because now they might die over an ounce of weed because of COVID. So it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah, that's asinine.
You ain't pushing no weight. You ain't selling no ounce. Who you selling an ounce to?
So let's talk about that. The medical uses that I guess, I don't know how much you know about that side of it, but can you speak to, for those that are probably watching this, but are probably grinding their teeth because we're sitting here having a conversation of potentially lobbying for the legalization of marijuana, right? Can you provide some context around the different uses that are currently out there that we know about? May not necessarily be FDA approved, but that we know about.
Yeah. So when I first got into this industry, I started seeing so many stories of children with epilepsy and being able to use CBD oil to get rid of their epileptic seizures. So there was a little girl who was having a seizure every 20 minutes, and she was taking 20 or so pills that was prescribed to her. And then her parents learned about CBD, and they started putting a little bit of CBD oil under her tongue, which, let me first help you guys understand the difference in the chemicals, just in case you're not familiar. So cannabis is the overall plant, and you have you have lots of chemicals in there. There's a bunch of chemicals, but the most popular ones are, you have your THC, which is the chemical that actually gets you high.
Okay.
And then you have the CBD, which is the chemical that is the medicine, and it does not get you high. And so that's why it's okay to give CBD to kids, because it's not a hallucinogen. And so, yeah, I saw a lot of these stories where the parents were putting the CBD oil under the kid's tongue, and they were going for months without having a seizure.
Wow.
And so they went from a seizure every 20 minutes to months, even years without having a seizure, to the point where when this first started, the story I was watching, the parents were in a state that wasn't legal. They moved to Colorado in order to be able to treat their child. And they had to make their own measurements and guess on how much to give to their child, but it helped. So there's a lot of kids and a lot of people with epileptic seizures that's been able to find relief using cannabis. It helps with pain. You'll see that I just saw an article that grandma is in the dispensary. So you'll see that a lot of the baby boomers, I mean, they feel a lot more comfortable being able to go to a dispensary where they know exactly what they're getting, what's in there and all that stuff, and using that for arthritis, using that for pain and different things that's going on in their life. There's PTSD, isn't it? There is such a long list of things that cannabis has been able to help people with. However, the only issue we have is there hasn't been money put into the actual studies. And so that's the main reason why the government won't put their stamp of approval that, you can use this, because they haven't invested the money that it takes in order to do the proper studies to get it approved.
Well, there's obviously $10 billion out there that they spend annually that they can put in R&D. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Naomi, a question on access to CBD. And I'm assuming insurance companies are not subsidizing it for families. Is it accessible? Is it affordable? Are you aware of what some of the going rates or the prices for the oil?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. So people might be surprised, but I don't use the product at all. I don't smoke. I don't use cannabis.
She lives in the words of the great notorious B.I.G. Never get high.
Don't get on your own supply.
Yeah, and I've never inhaled. But no, I don't actually use the product, and it's surprising. A lot of the business owners, that have these licenses also don't use the product. So that's pretty interesting. You got people who built the industry and they can't get a license, but yeah. So I'm actually, I know it's a lot more expensive to get it out of a dispensary, and the reason why it's a lot more expensive because the dispensaries are taxed. And they have to pay for licensing, they have to pay for taxes, they have to pay to be regulated. It costs more for them to even get a bank account. They have to pay upwards of $3,000 a month just to have a bank account open. So the cost, they have to be able to cover all those costs. So it is a lot more expensive to get it out of a dispensary than to buy it on the street corner. But yeah, I'm not really sure about what price range it would be for if you're a regular user.
I have a question for you, and you may or may not be able to answer this, or maybe someone that is in the comments probably can answer this. But let's say I have an ailment, right? And obviously there are some companies that do random drug testing, right? And whatever ailment I have, I'm trying to use CBD as a way to address that issue. Is that something that would be traced in a drug test if I were to be randomly tested?
So CBD, you'll be fine because that's federally legal now.
Okay.
But if you are getting THC, and also I didn't describe this earlier. So in order to qualify, since they all come from the same plant, a marijuana plant with high levels of THC also has a little bit of CBD in there, and CBD also has a little bit of THC. But to qualify for the legal CBD, it has to be below 0.3% of THC in that plant. So if I was holding a marijuana with high THC plant next to right here, and then another plant with high levels of CBD, they would look identical. You would have to do a laboratory test to understand which one is legal and which one is illegal. And so if you were taking CBD, that's completely federally legal. It just was legalized in 2018. So you would be fine. Now, if you were taking if you were like smoking a joint for relief and you were getting THC from that, some states have gotten rid of that law. Like employers, Nevada is one, where if they do a random drug test, they cannot deny you work if you're applying, or they can't fire you because of THC. And I did just see an article of another state or another industry that was, I think it was the NBA or the NFL, or one of these sports industries was not going to, you couldn't get fired, or, you know, if you have THC, which is something that is common in that industry. But yeah, so it's slowly rolling out that they won't be able to fire you or not hire you because of being tested positive for marijuana.
All right. So your job is safe, McDonald. You all right, man?
Check with your state.
I was just asking for a friend. I don't know about
Texas. I don't think Texas is on board yet, because Texas is still very limited. I think they have 3 licenses, and they're only for epilepsy patients.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I've been seeing a few more shops showing up in Dallas. I haven't walked into any of them, but I'm beginning to start observing it more. And the same things that you said, there have been people who have come to me and said, hey, this stuff works. The oil, especially for like the arthritis, that it really helps with their joint pain, and that it's medicinal, you know, that it does work. It grows from the ground. It's natural. It's not man-made or manufactured in some laboratory. So it has natural remedies to it. Naomi, you're a woman, African American, and you're in this industry. What's been your experience so far? Chauvinism, sexism, or has it been like a stroll in the park? What's it been like?
So for me, I guess I've just been lucky. It's kind of been a stroll in the park for me. And I think it's more so because I'm an ancillary business. I'm an accountant. I have over 15 years of accounting experience. So I'm a CPA. So I've made a name for myself. And, you know, I know debits and credits back and forth, and I can show it, and I can, you know, a lot of the stuff that we teach, and I actually teach accountants. And so just having my CPA license and that experience qualifies me to do what I'm doing. I know that it's a little bit tougher for people who are actually trying to open dispensaries or have farms, different things like that. I have spoken to some women groups. I had a conversation this week with a woman who's actually doing a full-on study. And I took the study. It took 20 minutes to get through. She asked some very detailed questions. She got over 900 responses in 3 different countries. And so she's got some really good information, and I can't wait for the results of her study to come out. But based on my brief conversation with her, she says it's not a walk in the park for most women, women of color. She says for white women, it's a little bit easier based on her study, but for women of color, it's not.
Wow.
I want to spend some time. Obviously, you've taken the time to come on and speak to us about this subject, but I wanted to spend some time talking about your business and kind of specifically what it does, right? And what it is that you're trying to foster as far as folks that were like you, that were probably trying to find their way, maybe find something that they were passionate about. Can you speak a little bit more about, a bit more expanded about what it is that you guys do on a day-to-day basis, outside of just supporting, I guess, the cannabis businesses that you support as far as providing accounting and so forth? What else do you guys do?
Yeah, awesome. So we provide training. So what happened was when I wanted to learn about doing accounting for cannabis, I went and I sought out a mentor, and he just so happened to be my business partner, Andrew. And I didn't know you can't Google how to do proper accounting in cannabis, or cannabis accounting, or chart of accounts for cannabis accounting, or you can't Google any of that stuff, because this is a brand new industry. Right. And because it's still federally illegal, a lot of the bigger firms are not here. So you're not seeing your PricewaterhouseCoopers, right, your EY, even your BDOs. You're not seeing the Grant Thorntons. You're not seeing the large to mid tier firms in this industry, because they would have to go through a lot of red tape. They would have to change their insurance. They would have to worry about any social stigma with their other clients. There's just so much that they would have to go through in order to bring this into their business. So typically you would see white papers and things from Pricewaterhouse or E&Y on how to do depreciation and cost accounting and all this stuff for different industries, but that's just not there. And so I reached out to my business partner. He had already been in the industry for over 4 years when I reached out to him. We started working together, and I wasn't the only one who reached out to him. There were a bunch of other accountants that started reaching out to him. And so he developed a training program because, you know, he was short on time. He didn't, you know, you can't just talk to everybody and mentor everybody. And it's just too much. You can't just take a phone call and know exactly what you need. You kind of need somebody there that you can come back and forth to, bounce ideas, ask questions as you come across it while you're working that client. And so we launched a cannabis training program, and we've taught over 500 accounting firms to date. We launched it in January of 2018. So we're only 2.5 years in. And so far, we've enrolled over 500 accounting firms, and we're the only company that's offering training to accountants. And we show you from A to Z how to find these license holders, how to talk to them, what are their pain points, what do you say when you get on the phone call, what types of questions should you be asking them to understand their business and understand what it will take for you to actually do their books for them or their tax return. And then how do you actually do it? What types of work papers do you need? How do you onboard them? What type of legal documents do you need to ensure that they're legal? Because we don't advocate doing the books for any illegal business. You want to ensure that they're legal, but then how do you dot your I's and cross all of your T's in order to make sure that you have everything lined up for this industry? Because these companies are the ones that are being audited. I mean, that's where the most money is. The IRS knows that they're messing up, that they don't really understand the guidance because the guidance just isn't clear. And so they're going after these companies, they're auditing these companies, they're giving them huge, up to $250,000 I saw in one court case of accuracy related penalties. You have to pay us $250,000 because your books were not accurate. That doesn't even include how much back taxes you have to pay now because your books weren't accurate. And then some people are getting prison sentences for not having things properly, but they don't know what they don't know. Like they're getting in trouble for things they don't even know is wrong. And so that's why we thought it was so important to get the education out there, not only to the accountants who want to enter this industry, but I also get the education out to the business owners because they need to understand that their books have to be done properly, or else they can have the best marketing, they could have the best logo and the best brand and all that stuff. But if their books aren't done right and the IRS comes in, they will lose their license and they may end up locked up.
Now, are you involved in, let's say the IRS does get involved, are you involved in, like, for instance, when auditing firms come to our company, they sit down with our accountants and folks and they walk through everything to make sure everything's accurate, right? Are you sitting down with these cannabis firms because you're not signing anything, you're just doing bookkeeping, but are you sitting down with the IRS and actually walking them through the accuracy to make sure that they know that what you're putting in there is accurate?
Yeah, so I'm not personally, I haven't had any clients who've been audited yet. A lot of these businesses, a lot of the IRS audits are a couple years down the road. So people file their tax return and then they don't hear from the IRS a couple of months and they think they're in the clear. That's not the case. Right. The IRS will come, in 2021 and say, let me see 2017. Wow. And so I haven't had a client yet to be audited. And a lot of times when you're actually going through that audit, you need to be, you need an attorney and you need like a tax CPA to help with that. As the accountant, what I teach is for my members in accounting firms who are doing this, how do you make sure that all the books and records are so clean and crisp that when that audit happens, we're going to save so much time for that business owner. When that, when that company comes, or when the IRS says, what is this $100,000 expense? You can just send them a folder that has all of the support, the invoices, the receipts, so that they have the answer to their question. And then there's no digging, there's no trying to recreate documents and stuff. It's just nice and clean. But yeah, as the auditor, your role, or not the auditor, as the accountant, your role will be just to supply the support to the IRS as they request it.
So Naomi, someone comes, so as you can see, Clifton Stevenson, shout out to Clifton. He's like really advocating for a school in Detroit.
Yeah.
You're gonna book your ticket, get in contact with their Clifton and see what can be worked out. So,
yeah, so my school is all over the US. So we have more than 500 accountants in all 50 states, not over, in all 50 states. So if it's something that you want to do as an accountant, I will drop a link in this chat so that you can contact me. Let me just pull it up.
That'd be great, and then I can put it up on the screen as well. So Naomi, quick question as you're doing that, is this. So let's use Clifton as as an example. Clifton is going to come to you, and Clifton is interested in starting a business in this area. Mm-hmm. What would Clifton need to come to the table with? Does he need a certain amount of capital? Does he need a line of credit? Should he start with working for or mirroring somebody? How does somebody actually jump into this without drowning immediately, or ever drowning? Let me say ever drowning.
Okay, so if he wants to come to me, I'm going to teach him accounting. Mm-hmm. And you don't need a lot of capital to start a remote online accounting business. You need a computer. You might need access to certain pieces of software, which have maybe a monthly subscription of from $10 to $99 a month. Mm-hmm. If he wants to come in as a cannabis company, a dispensary, a grow facility, then he's going to need to bring together investors. He's going to need to bring together $500,000 to millions of dollars of capital to the table. So it just depends on how he wants to come into this business.
Okay, cool. And so go ahead, McDonald, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, in that same vein, though, I've always been an advocate for people kind of getting in on the ground floor. So understanding the politics behind things, knowing who to get involved with. Like, we always see like these businesses pop up and we're like, wait a second, I didn't know that this was being worked or someone was involved in it. And you try to think about how can you be an investor on the front end? How did you get in early and all of that? Let's say there are states, right, that hadn't fully gone full bore with the legalization. But I want to get into the know as far as, who should I know? What should I be doing? How should I prepare? What are some of the best resources that you know about that I should probably at least tap into?
Great question. And this is what we also teach in our training program, that you have to become a VIP in the industry, which is an acronym for a valuable expert, an instructor, and a participant. So the P stands for participant. And a lot of times people think, oh, it's not legal yet, I'm just going to wait for it to become legal and then I'm going to look into it. You're already too late. So if you aren't looking at it, if just because it's not legal doesn't mean the conversations aren't being had right now.
Right.
You have the legislators, they have to figure out what it's going to look like before they legalize it. And so they're having public meetings. They're trying to figure out what this is going to look like. They're trying to figure out how many licenses they're going to have. Like, all of these meetings you can attend, and depending on what your ancillary business is. So you can either be going there expecting or wanting to see how to get your own license, or you can be going there as an ancillary business. So we teach our accountants to go to those meetings. So for instance, we have several accountants who are in our program out of the state of Texas, and Texas is not, all the way they don't have a lot of licenses yet. They're not a lot of legal medical. However, the state of Oklahoma went legal. And so and they issued 4,000 licenses in that state.
Wow.
And there aren't very many accountants in the state of Oklahoma. It's a very conservative state that even wanted to touch it. And so a lot of our accountants went to the state of Oklahoma to, not physically, but they targeted the state of Oklahoma to find a bunch of clients, and they were able to build a big practice. But not only did they build a practice out of the state of Oklahoma, they are in the meetings in Texas so that they could be involved as it's going legal in their state. And so You'll be in the meetings, not only you'll be there with the legislators, but you'll also be there with future license holders. And so once it does go legal, and if these people are granted a license, you're going to be the first to mind, because they saw you there in those meetings. They know that you understand what they went through. They know that you understand, all the laws related to this industry. And so they're going to want to work with you first. And so if this is something that you want to do, I would, and you're in a state that it's not legal, I would say get started now. And not only that, I know a couple of business owners who were granted licenses, and they told me it was like maybe a 2-year process to get that license.
Wow.
Before it even was legal in their state, they were already figuring out what their SOPs look like. What does their business plan look like? How is their payroll going to look? The budgets, all these things. They were trying to figure all this out and lining everything up for 2 years, so that when it went legal in their state and it was time to actually fill out the application, everything was lined up. They were able to fill out the application and submit it immediately, because you'll be surprised. Like, as soon as it goes legal, the next day they're like, oh, we've given away all the applications. And you're like, how did that, it just went legal yesterday. How did that happen? That's because people are already figuring out what it's going to look like for them, and getting involved before it actually happens.
Wow.
You give some gems now. Robert Bailey is feeling everything that you're saying. He's saying that you gave great advice. So now I'm assuming to be an accountant, you have to have some sort of accounting background before you can even attempt to try to get into that field. Before you start trying to balance somebody's books, you got to know about your receivables and all this stuff. Have you had experience with anyone who has tried to come to you who hasn't had a background in accounting that wants to say, yo, I want to do this?
So no, not right now. Our program, we request that you have at least 2 years of an accounting background, because our program is it's limited to showing you how to take your existing accounting knowledge and applying it to this particular industry. So we don't teach debits and credits. We don't teach how to use QuickBooks and all those types of things. We don't start you there. We start you at, okay, you already understand QuickBooks. You may have worked as an accounting clerk or something somewhere, and now you want to start your own business and start it in this particular industry. We show you how to apply your skill set to this industry. Now, you don't have to have a CPA, EA, any advanced degree or advanced certificate. You could still do it. You just need to really understand the basics of accounting.
Okay, cool. That's pretty cool.
We got a question. We got a question from some woman named Carrie Jean. I don't know if you got heard of her or know her, but so she wants to know, as a successful entrepreneur, what other tips, lessons can you share with others that want to leave their current jobs to become a full-time business owner? What are the advantages and disadvantages of going on your own?
Oh my gosh, that is a loaded question. Okay, so the first part of the question, tips and lessons for others to leave their current job. So let's start there. In order to leave your current job, I would recommend that you create a plan. If you're currently employed, I strongly recommend that people invest in whatever it is, whatever education or training that they need in order to make it to that next level. I was unemployed for 2 years, and I spent upwards of $50,000 on education. And people were like, "You're crazy. What are you?" But I went to university. However, when I graduated college, online stuff, social media didn't exist.
Right.
So I didn't learn this stuff. I didn't learn how to be an online business. I didn't learn how to be an entrepreneur really in college either. And so I knew that I needed not only to invest in just education and understanding it, but to invest in mentors and people who are there and who are living the life that I wanted to live, so that I can understand how to get there too. And so while you have an employee, that is your best investor to help you get the income that you need to invest in these things. And then also save. I saved while I was employed. I invested in education as well as saved, just in case there is some lag time between me actually finding something that's actually going to earn me enough income, and trying to figure it out. So I knew that it was going to take some time. I would recommend you try to stay with your employer for as long as you can, so that you have that income. If you're able to be disciplined and you have the time to do it on the side and or do it on the weekends, that's the best. I was actually let go from my job, so I kind of just had all of the time because, you know, luckily I saved up for that moment. I had enough to weather the storm. But if you're not in that position, try to stay on that job for as long as you can. So transitioning out, make sure you're saving and getting the education you need. And even if it's another skill set you want to learn, you can start doing a side hustle on that, or working part-time for somebody who's doing that, depending on what it is, or offering it as being a consultant, or offering it to friends and family, or something. But get the knowledge that you need in whatever skill set you want. And then the advantages and disadvantages. So the main disadvantages, but I think the main disadvantage is a disadvantage for any scenario, is that, you know, you don't know where you may not know at the beginning if you're going to get a next paycheck, or if you're a consultant, you know, they can always get rid of you with a 30-day notice. But I mean, they got rid of 30 million people in the country just, you know, in the last month. So, or 20 million, however, whatever the stat is. So there's nothing that's guaranteed. I got fired from my job, so that's not guaranteed. So there's really nothing that's guaranteed. I always look at every single paycheck as my last paycheck. So I'm always making sure, okay, I got this, let me put this to the side. Let me make sure that this debt is gone. And none of this stuff is, just in case this is the last one, I'll be good until I can figure out how to get the next one.
That's great advice.
Yeah. So that's one of the disadvantages, but that's just life. One of the advantages of being a business owner is you have freedom and flexibility. And like right now, during this time when everything went on lockdown and a lot of people are working from home, I have had the closest connection with many of my friends and family because they actually have the time to get on the phone. Like they're just sitting in the house all day. They're going crazy because their kids are running around and their husband or their wife is driving them crazy. And they're like, hey, what are you doing? Are you okay? You know, everybody is calling, making sure that everybody is okay. But they have a little bit more freedom because they're able to work from home and they're not busy, stuck in traffic, heading to work, heading home from work, going to pick the kids up, figuring out what's for dinner, you know, getting them down, all that stuff, like all that kind of relaxes a little bit when you have freedom over your time. And I heard this quote. I've heard it before, but I actually just heard it again today, where think about what is the most important thing to you personally in your life. And most people will say, my family is number one. My family is number one. My spirituality is number two, or vice versa, however you want to. But then think about, where do you spend most of your time?
Work.
And it's at work. So you're not spending the most of your time in the things that are the most important to you. Right. And so that's the advantage of being an entrepreneur. In like, I wanted to create the life that I wanted. And so when I was still working, I was thinking, this is not the life that I want. The life that I want is being able to spend quality time with the people that I love. I like to travel, and I've been to McDonald's, spend the night at my friends' houses all over the country and spend time with them, get to know their kids and all those things. And those are the things that are valuable to me. So that, I feel like that's the biggest advantage, is being able to create. Once you learn how to make money other than somebody telling you what you're worth, that opens so much freedom. Like when I was unemployed for two years, the first time that I told somebody, hey, I could do this for you and the fee is going to be $2,500, and they said yes, I felt like I printed money. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I just made something up and I told them what I was worth, and they agreed. I was able to express the value well enough to them that they agreed and they paid me. And that's the most, I felt like that was the most valuable lesson that I learned as an entrepreneur. And so if anything were to happen, you know, the world can come to an end, but I know how to go out there and figure out a way to add value to somebody's life to a point where they feel like they can return or compensate me for it.
Man, I have one question. So, go ahead, Jamie.
No, I'm just saying, man, I'm ready play the organ. And just, that was amazing. That was amazing. Ahead,
I have a question for you. So I'm always curious when I meet, very successful people. You mentioned something about, where you spend your time and what's important to you and all that other stuff. But I'm also curious about what are they reading? What are they filling their minds with to get them or keep them motivated, or like what's their go-to book or what's their Bible that they refer to for their discipline or just overall in general? What would you say is your number one, or the book that you read that had the biggest impact on your life, that was the paradigm shift to where you are right now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, which, I mean, it's just a little short book. I actually read this when it first came out. And I remember I was working at the Home Depot and I had it as an Audible. And as I was driving to work every day, I listened to that. And I always kept it in the back of my mind. I want to be able, I think he called it like retirement lifestyle or something, where you kind of retire early, but you're not really retired. You're working from your computer, but you're able to travel and live like you're retired. And so he talked about how you can find remote workers. He talked about how you can reduce, the time that you spend on your work or your business to 4 hours a week and spend the rest of the week doing whatever you want. And so that was always in the back of my head. Eventually, I want that type of life. I want that type of business. I gotta figure out how to get out of the office and into, being able to just work from my computer. And so I know that one's not one of the big ones that come up, but that one has always been that was a game changer for me.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot. We're going to do something a little fun. This is an audible I'm throwing at you because I don't want to keep it too serious or whatever. So tell the people one hidden talent that Naomi has that no one really knows about.
I can juggle. I can juggle 3 pieces of objects.
I'm trying to teach my daughter, so I don't even know how to do it that well. But that's so.
I haven't done it in a long time, but in like elementary school or middle school, we had to learn a talent, and that was the talent that I learned. And I was good. I was going under my leg, and I was doing all types of things back then.
Wow. You can add that to your business. Not only learn how to do accounting, but
juggle with a hidden talent. Well, Naomi, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with us. I mean, I learned a lot that I didn't know about this industry, and I'm sure our viewers learned a lot about it. And I appreciate you just sharing all the nuggets and jewels. I'm sure people walked away from here. I feel smarter already, right? But I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us and taking the time to talk to us about this. And I hope that someone that probably had some indecision in their current career that may, be looking for something else that they want to do, I hope that you inspired them to do that. Jamie, do you have anything else you want to say?
Oh, absolutely. Naomi, thank you once again. The folks out there are like, they want to see you juggle. They don't believe you. You don't have to take no word for it, but
maybe next time I got to do a little practice.
If you drop some gems, I celebrate you for having the courage to step out and to work for yourself.
Being a pioneer.
To be a pioneer in this industry. I'm glad to say that I know you, that, and that you're just a dope person. And so we had a really dope woman on our really dope show. And so we give you the crown of one really dope queen.
That's right.
And my advice to everybody who's watching, stop smoking it, start selling it, stop legally.
Well, Naomi, anything else you want to leave with the people, any way that they can reach you, that you want to put your information out there where folks can get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can find me on all social media. I'm pretty sure wherever this is, Naomi Granger. On Instagram, I am dopest CFO.
Okay.
So at dopest CFO. On Facebook, you can find Naomi Granger or Dope CFO. On YouTube, we're Dope CFO. So Twitter, we're Dope CFO. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us again. And thanks for everyone that decided to join us and watch this. Please share it. Please subscribe. And we look forward to the next conversation. This is two really dope dudes.
Signing
Thank
out.
you. Bye.
Peace.